All right, since we're live.
Oh,
We
we're
are
live.
live.
We are
Wonderful.
live.
That's all
Praise the
right.
Lord. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Watch Your Voice, a podcast for preachers by preachers. I almost forgot that. Let me introduce my co-hosts and co-panelists tonight. We have Janice Renee and Eldrick Jacobs, and I'm JWD3. So let's talk tonight.
I'm JWD.
I'm JWD, and there's been three of us. Hallelujah.
My Lord.
Um, let's talk tonight. It's good to see you, Janice. We're glad that you're back in the seat with us tonight.
Absolutely. Come
We
on,
missed you
co-laborer.
last week, and we're glad that you're enduring this process of healing. And so we're praying for you, praying for the family of your loved one, and glad to have you back tonight.
Thank you. It's super good to be back. I missed you guys.
We miss
Did
you
get
too.
Yeah, we missed you too.
Yeah, we miss you too.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's good
we were just
to
sitting
miss.
rambling last week.
Yeah, which is exactly what I feel like we're getting ready to do this week. So that's all right.
That's all right. That's all right. The musings. Musings. Musings.
But I'm certainly glad to be back, and I do want to say thank you to. I saw people's comments saying that they were praying and stuff, and so I definitely want to say thank you to everyone for your prayers. And yeah, I'm just excited to be back and to be talking about something that's light in the midst of
Yeah,
the weightiness.
Great, yeah, absolutely. So everybody like and share this video. It's going to be a good conversation tonight
For
for
sure.
sure.
because we are going to be talking about hope and hope in the middle of two pandemics. What does hope look like? Where can we find hope? And so I'm glad to have some very hopeful individuals because I know I have a problem. I have a problem
Same.
with being hopeful and rushing towards hope. So I hope we can talk about that a little bit tonight too. But I just kind of want to kick off this conversation with the question: what is hope? How do you all define hope?
Mm, mm.
Hallelujah.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
hope in something to come, a better, right? I
Mm,
think hope looks toward, or hope looks at something that looks bleak,
mm-hmm.
and then imagine the conditions for the possibility of, right? I
Right.
think hope allows, and if I can use my theological imagination, right? I think hope allows for us to go through very uh, uh, tough moments and then believe that there is something on the other side, right? That joy can come in the morning, even though there's a midnight now, right? I think hope is the stuff of resilience.
Mm,
Hope is the stuff
mm-hmm.
of like um, imagining something beyond, right?
Mm,
Um, and for me, that's precisely wherein like I get into some tension. I like you, James. I have my own struggles, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But what do you think, Janice? What do you think the stuff of hope
I
is?
think hope is, if I can put some kind of framework around it or definition for it, for me, hope is the desire for, belief in, and anticipation of something
Mhm.
better.
I think that's
mm.
good, but that was a mouthful.
That's
You're gonna have to
good.
run that
That's
It
back.
was
good. That's good. That's good, preacher. That's good, preacher. Watch
Talk,
your
man.
voice.
Talk.
Watch your voice.
I think that's
so
delightful.
yeah, man, I think it is the desire for, because the desire for something better, because
Mhm.
have if you lose your hope, then essentially what you're saying is I have lost, I don't even know if I have a desire for it, right?
Mm,
But I feel
Mhm.
like the desire part might even come last or even
mm,
second to the belief in. So the
Mm,
belief in something better, that I
mhm,
actually believe that something better can come in the face of whatever the muckiness is, in face of whatever the weightiness is. I
mhm,
believe that something better is on the other side of this.
mhm,
And then
mhm,
because I believe in it, I want it then. So
mm,
that's what, for me, where I
mhm,
believe the desire for. I believe that it
mhm,
is, so I want it. And
Mhm.
because I believe that it is, and it's something that I want, I now anticipate
Mhm.
that it's going to happen. When is out
Mhm.
of my control, but I anticipate it
Right.
because I believe that it is. And therefore, now I want what I believe and anticipate.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's good. Hope for me starts with I don't know.
Mhm.
Like I think I don't
That's,
know,
yeah.
particularly in situations like this, is the most hopeful answer that I can give. I don't know,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's been an answer that is the most efficient answer in a crisis or a pandemic or times of trouble, right? There's much solace in being able to say, I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, uh, when our ancestors would say, the Lord will make a way,
Somehow.
all
Yeah.
right? That was an I don't know moment, right?
Mhm.
How will the Lord make a way? Somehow.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Lord will make a way somehow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an I don't know moment. And so I start with hope by saying I don't know what's going to happen.
That's right.
I'm praying and I have faith that God will do something. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to wait, right? I'm just going to wait here and to see what's going to happen in this moment. Always knowing that the worst thing for me is death.
Mhm.
And somewhere I read, to be absent from the body is to be
Be
present with the
present.
Lord,
That's a
right?
hope. Yeah.
So, and that's a hope,
That's a
right?
hope. Yeah.
So, even if the worst things happen, I'm still good,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm still good, even if the worst thing happens. So, I start off with I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know, and I think that we can help people. We're always looking for answers, and sometimes we try to use hope as an
Mhm.
answer. You know,
Right.
just have some hope. Just be encouraged. I'm not encouraged right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraged.
We're gonna take you
You
people
know,
back where we were last week.
yeah. But I'm sitting in it. I'm sitting in it, and I'm just waiting on the Lord. I'd never forget. I feel like I'm talking too much now. I had a friend who came and had no money at all, but he came to South Carolina looking for a job. Didn't have no money, and so I'm sitting in the car, and I'm just I'm driving him around and getting him something to eat. Being a good friend. And I said, now what are you gonna do? I mean, you ain't got no money. And he says, well, Doc, I'm just gonna wait on the Lord, be of good courage. Do you know by the end of the day, someone passed him a check for $1,500?
My Lord.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's my
Well, the
definition of.
clever that was that my Cash App name is Janice Renee.
That's
We should
funny.
start putting our cash in the app's name
And the
on
little
this here
space.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bottom end of
Yeah.
that.
So
We take
if you
offering.
all like something that we say, y'all give a love offering.
A
Hallelujah.
heave
Throw it to the
offering.
comments.
No, James, I think you really said something though, man, with that I don't know. I think that there has to though be a certain level, right, of I don't know. I live on the side of pessimism. I think it's no secret really that in general, if I look at 400 years of American history, I think pessimism is a certainly fine position to find yourself beholden
Right,
to,
right,
right?
right,
But I
right.
also, in this like very Nibarian sense, like I don't believe that pessimism can have hope live alongside of it, right? And to come back to your I don't know, I think that precisely is the thing that mediates that hope. It's like I look out into the world, I see a very stark picture, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
but I don't know what this movement that is happening, where it's going to land us. I know that I've seen some very real, tangible things begin to take place that I don't know that we necessarily have ever
Mm-hmm,
had as a full conversation
mm-hmm,
in American
mm-hmm,
discourse, political discourse, and social
mm-hmm,
discourse.
mm-hmm,
And I know that gives me some semblance of what can be, right? Like I know that the conditions right now do offer us a rare opportunity, right?
mm-hmm,
To push us. And so, like, again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you're right. I think that I don't know is a perfectly reasonable theological statement of hope, right? it offers us an opportunity to recognize that we ain't God, right? And it's that profound recognition of knowing that we are not God that actually puts us on the trajectory to start to work a little bit more, right?
That's
Is
so
that like
good.
we
That's
do
so
what
good.
we can, and God will do what God will do, right? And
That's
it's in
good.
Right.
and it's in God
Right.
doing what God will do that we build our hopes on, right?
Boy, you
That's
preach
good.
it,
You're talking
huh?
I
good.
think I'm talking good.
You you preach it,
So
dude. You preach it.
I do believe that there is something to be said about I don't know, right? Like I don't know literally as a profound philosophical statement about where you are, right? Like
Right.
in this moment and not knowing being
Right.
okay.
Right.
Um
Right.
That's the part. That's the
Because
part
oh,
where
I'm sorry.
being okay with it, right?
right.
And I
Right.
think that for me, what's significant about the "I don't know" statement
Mhm.
is this level of not responsibility, but release. Like you release yourself from having to have all the answers. It is
Right.
I
Yes.
to try to play God. It
Right.
is
Yeah.
tiring to try to carry in tandem all of these weighty matters that have no definitive end to it, right?
Mhm.
So to
Right. Right.
declare I don't know is really for me, and maybe it could just be me,
Mhm.
but to declare I don't know for me is really like a release. Like it is
Mhm.
a act of worship, so
Mhm.
so to
Mm.
speak, because I
Right.
release the responsibility of having to have it all figured out to the
Right.
God who
Right.
I believe knows all.
Right.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's
It's you willingly submitting yourself to the sovereignty of God.
mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's the whole Job piece. Job says, as they were telling him that his cattle
Mhm.
were being killed and his children, well, not the children yet, but as the cattle in the house and all
Mhm.
the land was being destroyed, then another person came and says, "Your kids are now dead."
Mhm.
And Job, the Bible says, he tore his clothes, he shaved his head, he lamented, and then he
Mhm.
worshiped, right? And he worshiped by saying, naked I came into this world,
And naked.
and naked should I leave, right? And it's humility. Job says, I didn't have anything when I came into the world.
Mhm.
I won't have anything
When
when
I
I
leave.
leave the world. You see what I'm saying? And that this moment that I'm alive in is not any greater than those two moments,
Mhm.
right? I think that we have to be careful to not fall on the side of arrogance because there is a
Mm.
thin line between hope and arrogance,
I
right?
absolutely agree.
There
That's
is a
good.
thin line between hope and arrogance, right? It's not a guarantee that things will get better, right? I, naked I came to the world,
Naked I
naked I
return.
will leave. Whatever God's whatever God wills to happen, I need to learn how to be all right with it.
That's good. I think it
And
offers. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the story
Somebody said a
too.
Yo, we
bad
preaching
Negro.
tonight.
I know we all in our Bible.
Yeah, we in the
Wait
book
a minute.
tonight.
All these seminary
Hey,
educated, divinity educated folk in the
We in
Bible.
the book tonight.
Huh?
Do you see the book?
we in the
By
book
the way,
tonight.
if y'all don't have a Harper Collins, y'all need to get one. All right. Okay.
Facts, facts. But a very powerful statement that they made when the king wanted them to bow down, and they said, "Hey, look, I hear what you're saying about this trouble that is looming,
Mhm.
but if our
Right.
God steps in, bet. If our God doesn't, bet. Like whichever way it works out, like I'm
Right.
good. Like I am well. I still stand firm in my belief. And I
Mhm.
believe that God can. Like that's
Right.
Right.
the
Right.
the hope is built on that. Like I believe that God can. So whichever way it turns out,
Right.
I think that's
Right.
good from a pastoral point. We talk about like the relinquishing. I think there's another side too, because in my mind, I want to also understand that it's an invitation, right, for us to
yeah,
co-create, right, with God. Like
Mhm.
if we're going to talk about this hope, and we do have this telos, this view that we do want to move the world somewhere, though we may not in our own strength, right, be able to do it. I think it's a space where we're then invited to with God to co-create, to reimagine, recreate, to bring heaven to earth, and to work toward building the world that we'd like to see. So I think that like while hope is certainly pastoral insofar as it allows us to relinquish, right, and not to take on all the worries of the world as it suggests somehow we're God. But I think it's that it offers us this unique opportunity to co-create, right? And I think we talk a lot about co-creation, and this work in which we partner with God, where we become the hands and feet, right? That's language that we use, talk about being the hands and feet of God. I personally see it as, right, this opportunity for us to also do work to bring in a world that we hope for, right? And also with full knowledge of knowing that we aren't God, right?
Right.
And so I do think that there's this sort of mediating piece that, while hope certainly allows us to relinquish the fact that we ain't the one that is, it provides a unique space. And it's my view that that's partly what's taking place in the streets, right? If I was to theologize what I see as taking place. What were you saying, Janice?
Well, lately I've been thinking about, a matter of fact, and by lately I mean over the last few months. So before even the everything started happening, I've been thinking about the hope that is for me, in the resurrection. And I remember thinking about, or remember having a conversation in my intro to theology class. And in the conversation, we talked about, and a lot of times we harp so much on Friday, right? Especially, as Baptist folk, we love Friday, and we're gonna swing to Sunday.
Saturday.
Typically in places I would be like, let's sit in Saturday, but that's not where I'm at right now. Right now I'm thinking about resurrection, because while Friday acknowledges the reality of suffering, the resurrection, the hope of the resurrection is that suffering does not have the final say. Like the pain, the terrible things that happen is not the end of the story, and does not have to be the end of the story, right? And so this is why we protest, because we protest because of resurrection. Because of resurrection, we sign these petitions. Because of resurrection, we sign up for whatever these committees are that make change. Because of resurrection, we call out white supremacy when we see it. Because of resurrection, we tear down all the systems that are in place that oppress people of color. And it's because of the hope of the resurrection, which tells us, which directs me in my mind and in my heart and in my spirit to believe that suffering, white supremacy, pain, evil in this world does not have to have the final say. It exists, which is what Friday posits to us, but it's definitely by no means the end of the story.
Read the text.
Right.
Read the
That's
text,
preaching.
preacher.
That's preaching. That's the thing, right? It
A good Baptist.
exists.
I should go ahead and say a good Baptist.
Friday exists, but Sunday is coming. And that is, and here's the point, right? We don't know what Sunday is going to hold.
Right.
Because no one expected Jesus. No one, even though Jesus said it, or even though the gospel says that Jesus said whatever he said about his resurrection, no one expected this to happen. They were coming to the tomb to put him away, to make sure that he had enough spices so that he did not spell. And there's hope. N.T. Wright, who's a bishop in somewhere in England, Church of England. He is now a professor, chancellor of a university. But he writes a book called "Surprised by Hope," and it's really that. It is surprise. I am surprised. I was surprised to see that the police, that the city council in Minneapolis defunded their police department. I was surprised to see that so many Republicans are turning on Donald Trump. I'm surprised by these things because I never expected them to happen. Right. And it's to live in that tension of what I can see and what I believe is coming, but I don't know is coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I feel like that's complicated.
No, that's good.
That's that faith piece that is the substance
of things unseen.
Yeah.
Like it literally suggests, that passage literally suggests that I treat what I don't see as though it is already a reality, right? Which is why we protest. It is again why we sign these
Right.
petitions and so forth.
Right. And that's why I said last week that I refuse to live in fear.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right? Because if my freedom does not exist now and in ways that I can actualize it, right? That doesn't mean that I live in bondage. No, I
Right.
live in the freedom that I desire to live in, even if it calls me death. And for me, that is what it means to be faithful. It is to not take my eyes off of what I believe is the promise of God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we get so weighed down by our circumstances. Now, this is the preacher and the pastor coming out of me. We
Yeah.
get so weighed down by the circumstances that we find it easy to just give in and to give up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say here that giving up and giving in a is a decision that you have to make, and no, there should not be anyone who fault you on the decision of giving up and giving in. It's perfectly fine. In fact, in
Mm-hmm.
some cases, it makes more sense for you to give up and to give in. But on the flip side of that, if you want to be hopeful people, you got to realize that you are doing the work of resistance, because hope is resisting,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is resisting the powers of this world that seek to kill, steal, and destroy, and
Mm-hmm.
however they choose to manifest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, yeah, God
Yeah.
resists death.
To your point, like I think that having faith is a more laborious task than giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
It
It is.
right.
requires
Most
It
a
is.
certainly.
level of intention that giving up, because giving up suggests that, in certain aspects, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
there are some things we must give up on, right? Like we must give
Mm-hmm.
up on white supremacy, like those who
Mm-hmm.
hold it as their, but
Mm-hmm.
while there are things that we must give up on, for those of us who believe that good is on the other side of this, that it, quote, gets gooder, in the words of
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Howard John Wesley, for those of us who
Mm-hmm.
believe that it gets gooder, right, it requires a laborious work ethic,
Right,
like a
Mm-hmm.
work
right.
ethic. Like I have to daily work at the better that I believe is on the other side. I have
Right.
to, when life would tell me to give, when circumstances will suggest that it is easier for me to give up, that it's always going to be like this, I have to
Mm-hmm.
shut that voice up. Like I have to intentionally be like, bro, like that's not what this is finna be. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're going to believe, and it's hard, especially because faith requires some level of action to to back up that belief, right? Faith
Right.
treats what I don't see as though it already is. So if I believe that
Yes.
liberation already is, then I have to do the work of liberation so that what I don't see, I see
Mm.
in the long run.
Right. 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 Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Y'all, we just did something. This has been the best.
All of us on here
Oh,
theologizing.
we just up here doing theology right now. This is
All
wonderful.
of this
Uh,
theology.
So where do you see that happening? Like in this movement and what's going on right now, where do you find hope? I know I mentioned some cases, some instances, but where is the hope right
I
now?
think Minneapolis, I think that point where their city council voting on defunding the police, I think that's crazy. We would never be having this conversation.
Mm,
And I read something. It's really kind of like a perfect storm. Folks at home, pandemic taking place, Black folks dying disproportionately as they always do whenever
mhm,
something happens in America.
mhm,
And then on top of that, seeing the images of our dear brother George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in Louisville and Ahmaud Arbery, I think like the tangible sort of realization that stemming the tide of marginalization, racism, anti-Blackness, white supremacy is we see it manifest in police departments, and now we see a city council not proactively, reactively in some ways,
right,
taking steps as a result, right, of bringing pressure to bear. And that's a profound commentary on what it means to bring pressure to bear. Too often, our religious leaders and leaders want to make commentary about voting. I don't think it was voting that brought pressure to bear like this that's got folks to start talking about defunding the police department, right? I don't think it was that vote. Not that we should not vote. That is one such way. Electoral politics is one such way we engage in changing the world, the social political world. But there's something profound to be said about how those folks taken to the streets have managed to get folks to have conversation about defunding the police department. That's that for me. I see some figure of hope. Yeah, I think that's one such place that really is profound. And I said this earlier, like I didn't expect it either, James. It is shocking to me that this is a conversation that we really are having. Right. Folks are raising questions whether or not police departments are signed on to receive excess military equipment. Shocking. Right. We talk about a militarized state, right? We talk about the military industrial complex, overproduction of war killing machines, right? That's shocking to me. And this sort of resurgence of those conversations that have been had in some places, but mostly in silos, arguably, are actually making its way into the popular discourse, or at least the political discourse.
Right. You know, I think, you know, and I agree wholeheartedly with you, Ty. But I think the very fact that we keep waking up Black is hopeful. You know, that we keep on waking up, going to our places of work, you know, taking care of our children, tuning in to live stream to worship on Sunday morning, that we continue to find a way to live life in the middle of two pandemics. I don't know if you understand how radical this is, but I want you to sit in it for a second. I've never lived through a pandemic before. Okay. So the first question to me is, how do you do it? I'm literally making it up as I go.
We're winging this thing, Doc.
We're all winging it. And the very fact that we are winging it and we have not gotten sick yet, we have not succumbed to the pressures, we have not lost our minds, we have not died, we have not allowed it to take it out, is a testimony that God's been good. Right. And it's a testimony that I have all that I need to make it through any storm. And that's hope for me. Right. That's hope for me. I spend most of my days in the house because the white people told me that I couldn't go outside. Okay. So I spend most of my days in the house, but it's in the house that I'm finding ways of reinventing myself. Right. Finding ways of reinventing my ideas, finding ways to reach my congregation, and it's working. It's successful. And that's, I don't know. I just got really excited over that. But I think that we don't give ourselves credit, right? That we are surviving. Every day we're surviving. Every day we're making it. Janice, you're in a PhD program and there's a pandemic. You know, we're surviving, we're making it. And that's hopeful because the next time something like this happened, all I'm going to just reference is 2020. I survived it.
That's a song.
Yeah, I survived it.
No, I think that's good, man. That's good. I think talking about like survival as also a place where we can find hope. That's good. I know that we want to make sure that we're surviving, but we also want to move to flourishing as well, right? Like finding ways where we can also reframe and find shapes of freedom that allow all of us in the fullness of who we are, all the identity markers that we hit in the categories that we bring, right? Like we also want to make sure that like think through like what it looks like for folks who hit other identity markers and their ability to survive and moving beyond to flourishing. And I think that what's also hopeful about this moment is I'm seeing some intersectional conversation, all right, around the intersection of those various categorical markers, right? Whether that be gender, sexuality, and the like, right? So I think there's, for me too, like the fact that like I am seeing a lot more conversations there, and that sort of nexus also allows for um, uh, some hope. And I want to be clear. I think there needs to be much more conversation that way, right? Like that there is still clearly a thread wherein some folks are highlighting George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery more than Taylor in Louisville, right?
Right.
And that's real, and that's something that needs to be addressed. But I'm also seeing, particularly around some of the folks that I'm around here in Southwest Georgia, like I'm seeing folks actually naming, right, outside of just talking about Black men being killed, right? Tragedy. I want to be very clear about the tragedy there. But I'm seeing that, and that's hopeful for me as well, right? Like I want to see more of it, need to see more of it, got to have more of it, because equity can't just be relegated to, or equality and justice can't just be relegated to men, Black men in particular, right? So yeah, I think that for me, those spaces give us an opportunity for us to explore more, for how we can also talk about flourishing for folks that don't occupy, like you and I, James, like Black maleness.
Right.
So
Yeah.
another space. Janice, you
Your note on, I like your note on flourishing. Actually, this past Sunday, I tuned into our good friend Reverend Jeremy Wanton's sermon, and he talked about the passage in Scripture where God calls for God's people to be fruitful and multiply, but that in the original language, it literally suggests to flourish and be great. Flourish and be great. Like,
wow.
and I think that flourishing thing requires this like intention, right? Like any flower that flourishes, it is because there has been a watering. It is because there has been um, some sunlight. It is because there has been some tending to the soil, right? And so I align with the idea of flourishing, and in conjunction with what James was saying, like even in the everydayness,
Yes.
right? Like there's hope in the fact that we are here and we are living, and I do see people flourishing. I do see people tending to what is necessary for them to flourish. And one of the places where I see hope is in that the church is now forced to have conversations that the church was not having, that many churches were not having before. I won't say make the broad sweeping generalization that not all churches were saying it. Particularly, I know Black churches are saying it, but now white spaces of faith are having to face this in a way that they never have before, and good, like
Right.
because for
About
real,
time.
like
About time.
right. So because I'm starting to see white faith leaders attending protests. Now, the protest we know is not the end of the story, right? But I think for me, it's just kind of like, we're having to now, well, y'all are having to have those conversations because we've been talking about it. And then
Right.
apart from that, or rather alongside of that, the conversations that the church at large is now having to have is around mental health and around self-care and around tending to ourselves in ways that we can't just pray away, right? You can't just pray away depression, right? And the reality is that the season that we're living in is like it can bring on some depression. It can bring on some deep loneliness. It can bring on some it can be triggering for so many people. And now we're having to talk about mental health in a way that folks weren't talking about it before. It's destigmatized at this point. It is destigmatized, and it has to be destigmatized in the Black church, like in particular. Like folks are having. I have seen more people, particularly people of faith, whether they are faith leaders or not, talking about get counseling more than ever before, right?
Right.
And that for me is hopeful, because what it suggests is if I'm suggesting or calling for people to get counseling, I believe that means that I believe that there's something on the other side of it. I'm trying to help you live through it. Counseling will help you to live through it. Counseling will help you to grieve in a healthy way. Counseling will help you to overcome or walk with you. It'll be a tool that you use to get through this that we are currently living in. And for me, you know, that there's hope in that. I mean, there's hope in just being able to go outside and breathe.
My next breath, I'm drawing it.
I'm saying, I walked outside today.
Now that might look a
For
little
real,
close
I
to a
walked
Baptist fit, James.
Let me tell you something. I felt the Holy Ghost on that one, huh? The very fact I woke up this morning, huh? Jesus, I woke up.
And that's good.
That's something
We
to
sit
shout
in
over right
church.
there.
We sit in church, and you know, it has become cliche for someone to say, "I'm just woke me up this morning. I'm just glad to be clothed in my right mind." But
Right.
that stuff is more tangible in this season. No, for real.
Yes.
I'm glad I woke up this morning.
I woke
No,
up
for
this
real.
morning.
I just woke up this
That's
morning.
for real.
Yeah.
Like, we have become so focused on temporal things, right?
Yeah.
We have become so focused on prosperity. I'm just thanking God that every morning I keep waking up, watch this, in my right mind with a reasonable portion of health and strength, and my loved ones are still here, right? I think hope and gratefulness goes hand to hand. That you cannot make it, you cannot have hope unless you're grateful for some things. That's not a new house or a new car or $1,100,000 in your bank account. You know,
You talking,
slaves.
James?
I think those slaves who worked the field and sung the songs our ancestors, they were grateful. Grateful not because they were in slavery, right? Not because they're working in the fields, but because they did have their children around them. They did have a little bit to eat, you know. They could steal away, right? They were grateful that God had given them a little bit to keep their sanity in slavery. And when their masters came for the little bit they had, they defended it, right? To the point of death, right? And I'm just grateful for the things that God has given me for me to keep my sanity and to keep my life, you know. And if the system comes out of after those things, I'm defending it like those slaves did. I'm gonna have a vision, and God's gonna say, "Kill them all."
Oh, dear Jesus! I think James just had a Nat Turner moment.
Yeah, I just had a Nat Turner moment. I'm sorry.
You say he had a theophany? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know
Because,
about that.
But I want to recognize that one of the things that's keeping me moving in this moment is my wife, is my church, is conversations like this, is the common seminary, right? Like if I did not have these things, I don't know what I will wake up to in the mornings. You see what I'm saying? So I'm grateful. I just want to name. So you never said nothing nice about you guys. I want to name that I'm grateful for all of you.
And I for you,
right? Because it's things like this that keeps us. You'll see what I'm trying to say.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm following you, Doc. Come on, man.
I want to tag. You guys go ahead, Andrew.
No. Please go. I insist. I didn't have anything in that moment.
Lately, my thing has been, I got it from my friend, but and it was on time because I had just read in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, I think the B clause, and it said to hold on to what is good. And then the same day that I read that, my friend said that he had been encouraging people to find your happy. Right. And so for me, that holding on to what is good, that finding your happy is in the little things, right? There's a whole lot to be depressed about, but there is still some good in this world, like the simple things like I'm glad I woke up I'm grateful to have woke up this morning. I'm grateful to be able to call my parents on the phone. I'm grateful to be able, for me, I'm a early riser, and my morning cup of coffee, y'all know I'm really down for the aesthetics and all of the morning and stuff. And so my happy could be simply a fresh cup of coffee in the early morning, watching the sunrise, if I can, not from my apartment, because clearly the view ain't all that great. But I'm glad be able to
Gotta pay
open up
$500 extra.
Yeah, remember that. But I'm grateful to be able to crack my door open and hear the birds chirping. You see what I'm saying? Like
Right,
there are
right.
folks who can't. And that let me name this. I am not one who believes that that it is necessary to compare your situation to somebody else's situation in
Right.
order to understand how great your situation is. Absolutely
Mhm.
not. Like I don't even I don't believe in that. But what I do believe is that I'm grateful for every little moment. Anybody that knows me well knows how much I love music, right? So I will have a little karaoke session on my own. And if you watch my stories, you'll see I'm always on some name that tune type of stuff because I love music. And for me, that's my happy. And so I think that it's important for us to find our happy every single day. It's important to us, like scripture says, hold on to what is good. It sucks. It's a lot that sucks right now, right?
Right.
But I'm gonna hold on to what is good in my friendship with my brothers at the common seminary. I'm gonna hold on to what is good in every morning cup of coffee. I'm gonna hold on to what is good in having all 5 of my siblings on a group chat where we can just laugh and just be and become unhinged. Like I'm finding my happy in the little things, and I appreciate having to get back to the little things that we criticize our elders and ancestors for being so ecstatic about. No, we got spoiled because of technological advances. We've gotten spoiled, those of us who live in this 21st century. But our elders, our ancestors, right? They were happy with what they had. They were happy with being able to make a way out of no way. They were able to find their happy in the little. Now I kind of appreciate able to not have the pressure of performativity. Punch me in my face every week like it normally does, right? And we don't notice it because we're just living through it, right? But now we're having to slow down, and now we're having to search for the things, and it makes you have to be grateful, like James was saying.
Wow.
You know, my
I'm talking
grandmother.
too much, but
No, you're good. You're good. You know, my grandmother said something to me one time, and she was basically saying that black people get really excited around dinner time, around food time, right? And particularly around food that we know is killing us.
Yeah.
yeah,
Chitlins, all that stuff. And so I asked her about it. I asked her about it. And like, why at Thanksgiving do y'all get excited about chitlins? Right? Why do you get excited about, I don't know, whatever the food is? I can't eat it because I know surely the day I taste it, I would die. But
I would
like she
really
told me,
die.
I would surely die.
I would,
But like she told me,
and
she
then
was
I
like,
need it.
there was a moment in our lives where we could not afford this. There was a moment in our lives where we could not, afford this spread that we have placed on the table at Thanksgiving, right? And I learned that day a very valuable lesson about taking stuff for granted. You know that
Wow.
there have been moments and will be moments when I won't have what I have, and so I'm allowing what I have now to mean so much to me that it helps lift my attitude, it helps lift my energies, it helps lift my spirits, and it allows me to be in the space of gratefulness to God for this moment, for this food, for this table. That's why we still pray before every meal, right? Because we don't take the fact that next week, next Tuesday or Monday, whatever the day it is, we could be eating tomato sandwiches, you know?
Right.
I don't know. I'm finding myself more grateful throughout these pandemics.
Yeah.
And yeah. Mm.
And that's
I feel like we just went off on a tangent about
it.
All
I
this
told
has
you.
connected
been.
though. Definitely all connect. Gratefulness, hope. I think there is absolutely some deep connection as we just explored.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was
So
good.
I
This was
guess
good. A good conversation to have considering the weightier matters that we've been having to wrestle
Absolutely.
with. You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
good.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, we've been going on for about 45 minutes now. How do you want to wrap up tonight? I put that in y'all's hands.
I want to encourage each of us to name one thing that is our place of happy, um, as we sign off, and encourage those of you who are currently watching and those of you who will watch, to name your happy. For me, my happy is my family. I'm the fifth of six children, and I have both of my parents, and that for me is my happy. I mean, there's never a dull moment when we're together, and for that, I'm grateful. My family gives me life. That's
My mother has been on me about having coffee with her in the morning. Now I confess, a morning person I am not. And probably like a day ago or so, me and my mama had coffee in the morning, and I have committed to doing that now while I'm hanging out with her, having some coffee with my mama, and I'm grateful for coffee with my mama and just good conversation before she goes to work. I really am grateful. I've been finding that great joy in that moment. And so that's what I'm grateful for, my family, but more importantly, more specifically, I'm grateful for coffee with my mom in the morning.
I'm grateful for playfulness. You know,
That's good, man.
and like it just dawned on me maybe a couple of days ago that my childhood was probably, as of right now, my childhood was the best years of my life, living with my grandmother and my auntie. And I'm finding myself, you know, reliving that now with my wife at 30 years old, right? So when I was a kid, my auntie was 9 years older than me, and it gave me an opportunity to be the annoying little brother, right? I get to run up in her room, read her little love notes, eavesdrops on her telephone calls, right? I had the opportunity to, you know, be a nuisance, which I was having the best time of my life doing, right? Now at 30, I'm the annoying husband, right?
Poor
And
JoJo.
poor JoJo, right?
Poor
And I
JoJo.
find myself, you know, um, getting on my wife's nerves and playing around with her, and she engages me, right? She allows me the opportunity to get on her nerves and to play fight. Like last night, for at least 30 minutes, we ran around the house with pillows. This just sounds so strange because we were really old and we should be doing old people things. But last night we just ran around the house with pillows, like knocking each other out and laughing, right? And so it is this playfulness that's really has been the kind of the center of our time together, where we're able to joke and laugh and get on both of our nerves, right? And still find time to be silly with each other. That's really something that I'm grateful for. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That's something that I'm grateful for. Well, guys,
well, amen.
this is wonderful.
Amen. Ashe.
Yeah. Ashe and amen and insert other tongue languages that you would like to.
Robo shatabaka.
Aka.
Shandabadabo.
You know,
Do
we should have a common seminary talk on just tongues and invite. Hear me out. Hear me out. We need to have a watch your voice episode on tongues and invite an expert tongue speaker and allow that person
Just
to
going
just
horribly.
speak in tongues for
I got the
45
perfect
minutes.
one. I'm not gonna name him.
Oh,
Yeah, but we
Denise,
got
I think I know
invited.
who you saying, but Lord have mercy.
What if we did a watch your voice Tarian service? Huh?
A tarrying service? We're gonna lay prostrate.
Yeah. Come on, call his name. Jesus, 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 Jesus,
I think you
Jesus.
listen. I know you Wesleyan. All right, thanks of God.
Foaming at the mouth. Can we get Gertrude Snacks to come on? I want a word.
All right, y'all. So
I'm not
thank
wading
y'all
into
for
that one.
tuning in. Thank everybody for
Oh,
tuning in.
geez.
Absolutely.
And those of you who will watch, we are super grateful to have been on tonight. We will be back next week with even more greater conversation, I suppose, because it just keeps getting gooder and gooder every week.
Gooder and gooder.
So
Gooder and gooder.
I'm gonna switch it up on us tonight. Eldred, will you pray us out?
Certainly. Lord, thank you for this opportunity for us to hold space and to think about hope, particularly in this moment where we're facing two pandemics, COVID-19 and racism and white supremacy. Lord, in these moments, Lord, sustain us, fortify us, give us what we need, and help us to relinquish to you and to be co-creators and co-conspirators with you in Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Y'all be blessed. Y'all have a good night.
Right.
We'll
Bless
see you
you,
next
man.
week. Have
Bless
a
you,
blessed
Denise.
week.
We talk.
Blessings.
All right.
Yep.
Bye-bye now.